The college football world believes that the Duke Blue Devils got an absolute steal in the transfer portal in Darian Mensah. And guess what? They're absolutely right.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. It's so great to have you here with us today on Monday, May 19th, 2025, as we start another week here in the life of Locked On Blue Devils, a daily podcast devoted to everything going on inside the life of Duke Athletics. It's your team every day, as we are proudly a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. If you have not done so already, we'd love for your support. Subscribe to our podcast feed wherever it is that you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Also, check us out each and every day on YouTube. On today's show, we're going to be joined by our good friend Josh Cox, who's here with us today to talk about the Duke football team gearing up for the upcoming fall season. ESPN has recently put together a list of the best transfers in the sport, and Duke quarterback Darian Mensah is right there towards the top. So we'll dive into all of that. We'll have a little bit of basketball recruiting chatter at the end of the program and so much more. It's going to be a really good show, and we're glad you're here with us again today. Follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. We're also on Instagram and TikTok as well. Without further ado, the aforementioned Josh Cox makes his return once again to the program. I hope you're doing well, my friend. May's flying by, and we're trying to get into a little bit more football conversations these days, man.
Yeah, for sure, JJ. I missed you the last couple of weeks, man. I know our schedules just keep getting a little mixed up there, but no, man, it's really good. It's obviously the off season. May is somewhat of a I don't know if there is such a thing as a down month in college athletics, but May is as close to that at the end of April and the beginning of May is as close to a downtime as you're going to get. But there's still plenty to talk about. As you mentioned, especially in the Duke football world, we're in the off season and a great time to take a look back at kind of the spring and how that went, and then obviously looking forward to what's going to be taking place here in just a couple of weeks.
That time of year where the graduation festivities have coming in, and it starts to quiet down in all these college towns for a little bit, and then players start to move in for summer workouts and that sort of thing, and it really picks up. So recently, ESPN put together their top 100. Pretty big project for them to try and put together their top 100 transfers in college football ahead of the upcoming season. Number one was John Mateer, the quarterback from Washington State, who goes to Oklahoma. I know people always want to know who's there at the top. But the important thing here is that Darian Mensah, the transfer quarterback from Tulane, who's going to be playing for us, for Duke this upcoming season, is the third best transfer in ESPN's rankings. And I think they got this absolutely right. It's the most important position on the field. And when you look at what Duke has been able to do in their successful seasons, quarterback has been a large part of that. Beyond that, it's right because of the type of player that Darian Mensah is and just the ability that he's got to extend plays, throw from all angles, throw at all areas on the field. Just seems to always have a good head on his shoulder and doesn't get too overwhelmed when he's caught up in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, what a get. I mean, in the portal, obviously, a lot of people enter the portal, right? But that doesn't mean anything, right? Unless you can identify the people that you feel like are going to improve your team the most, and then be able to land those people. And so, shout out to Duke. Shout out to the advanced kind of analytics team there that is always at the top of their game. Trying to locate the best possible talent, trying to land them, and nowadays, right, trying to land them and make it happen financially, all that stuff. And obviously Darian Mensah is, exactly what Duke football was looking for and the program was looking for in a quarterback. You already mentioned some of the things he brings to the table, which I'm sure we'll get into more, but I just feel like it fits more so of what Jonathan Brewer for this.
Yeah, no, when I look at it in particular with Darian Mensah and what he's been able to do for this Duke football squad, his ability, like we've said, to extend plays is so big. And now we've got a couple of photos on the screen here for folks watching us on YouTube we know what it's like to see him kind of in that Duke gear because we've got the spring game that's come and gone. You and I, though, had conversations all the way back in December, January, Josh, when this news first took place. When you go back to kind of that time period and you began to learn a little bit about Darian Mensah, the football player, what were the parts of his game that impressed you the most?
Well, yeah, you hit on, I think, the biggest part, and that's the ability to extend plays. If you look at just his stats, from a 30,000-foot view, it's not that he rushed for a ton of yardage last year at Tulane, but what you see when you watch him play is that ability to see past the first, even the second read, to buy some time, to get outside of the pocket, to make throws on the run. I'm not in any way comparing him to Patrick Mahomes, but I'm saying what he's able to do in extending plays. Once again, Mahomes is kind of the guy. It's not necessarily that his stats blow you away rushing the football. It's that he can extend the play, and then sure enough, a play that was doomed to be an incomplete pass, all of a sudden, there's an open receiver because he's extended that play longer. And so I think that's the main thing. I think the second part, there is the actual threat of running, actually putting his feet down. You mentioned the spring game, and the first drive of the spring game, there was like a 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 or something like that. And he happened to run and get outside the pocket and get the first down. And there was the mock cheers from the crowd, for that. So I do think
that's refreshing though,
It is. That's an element to his game. And I think we have all seen this modern era of football, not just college football, but any football, is that you really do need to be able to improvise with your quarterback. And whenever that play breaks down, you've got to have somebody that's got the flexibility in the quarterback room in a position to make a play. And I think that's what Darian Mensah brings.
I'm excited to see him bring that for Duke specifically this upcoming season. It's going to be awesome to see him playing for the Blue Devils. Let's go ahead and we'll take our first break here on today's program. When we come back, we'll continue talking all things Duke football here as Locked On Blue Devils continues in just a moment. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch Money, I realized just how much I was spending on things like food delivery. Now I'm able to budget smarter and save a whole lot more. It's been awesome to have something like this by my side. Instead of having to juggle multiple apps, Monarch Money can check all the finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals all in one place. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Monarch Money is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. All right, we keep moving forward here on today's program. JJ Jackson joined today by my pal Josh Cox from Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast and a variety of other outlets. When you look at this Duke football team in particular, and we're talking about Darian Mensah being one of the top transfers in the sport, looking at Duke football as a whole, the best years, I don't think it's a coincidence, man, that it's also been paired with really good quarterback play.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the engine, right, that moves the train. If you look at the successful programs, you look at those that made the college football playoff, you look at those that were in conference championship games, you look at those who've ultimately gone on to win the national title, they don't always have the best quarterback in the country, right? But they have a quarterback that does exactly what their system needs their quarterback to do. And to that end, I think this offseason was about, what do we want this offense to do? And who is the quarterback out there that can do it the best? And I know that as Duke was filtering through, those that were in the portal and those that were available, that Darian Mensah ranked like at the very top of, like, basically if you could put if Duke football could create a player, like, it was Darian Mensah. And so that's, once again, I'm not trying to put too much pressure on the guy. I'm just saying that I really do believe that as Coach Diaz, Coach Brewer were thinking through the offense, they needed a certain type of leader, and I believe Darian checks all the boxes that they were looking for.
Which, again, this is a Duke team that's coming off of a really good season in year one of Manny Diaz getting those 9 wins, and you had strong quarterback play from someone like Malik Murphy, who has the program passing record for yardage within a season. But I look at what Darian Mensah was able to do this past season. He averaged 9.5 yards per attempt. That led the entire American Conference. It was one of the top in the country when you look at guys throwing the ball downfield. I know that there are wide receivers that have left the program due to graduation and their college eligibility coming to an end in Jordan Moore and Eli Pankel. But just knowing that you've had a quarterback who's able to throw the ball down the field, that's incredible, man. Like, that is, to your point, going to be able to open up so much for Duke.
Yeah, and I mean, to touch on the elephant in the room here, that is the Malik Murphy, last year, there's always the question of fit, right? That's I mean, if you look at it in the NFL, it's like certain guys get drafted to the Browns, and guess what? Not a good fit, right? But other players get drafted into better organizations, and it just so happens that it's a good fit, right? Like, sometimes they get to play behind a starting quarterback for a couple of seasons, and then all of a sudden it's a good fit. So I think that's really what it came down to here. If you think about the timeline that happened last year, Coach Diaz is hired as the coach and lands Malik Murphy in the transfer portal from Texas. And he lands Malik Murphy before he's able to secure Jonathan Brewer as his offensive coordinator. And so you're already basically, in a sense, you're kind of working backwards. Ideally, you've got your coordinator and the philosophy and the scheme in place, and then you can kind of recruit to that. So, I know there was a lot that was said and a lot of opinions last year about quarterback play, offensive coordinator, and whatnot, and that relationship and how that presented itself on the field. But at the end of the day, I believe both sides really tried to maximize and do the best that they could, right? And so that's like no harm, no foul. Like, I think it was a good season. I think success was had on the field, and this is now a grown man, sport, college football. And so that's kind of what happened there. But to your point, Darian Mensah does come in. It's not like he's coming in and taking over for an unsuccessful, quarterback. There is definitely a standard that was set last season. Now, obviously completely different types of game, I believe, between Malik. And Malik had just a cannon, man, of an arm, could throw the ball anywhere he wanted to. And Darian's game's a little bit different. Darian also comes in, as you mentioned, having lost, Eli Panko, having lost Jordan Moore, having lost Nicky Dalmolin, having lost some guys that really, were important there in the passing game. But he does return, your Kashawn Brown, who just, really came on the scene. I think he's got a great future. Samir Hagans, who's now going into a senior season. And then Duke is really counting heavily on Andrew Anthony, who is a transfer coming in from Oklahoma, and then also Cooper Barkate from coming in from the Ivy League from Harvard. Both of those guys are going to be leaned upon heavily, and so it's about getting reps, it's about getting timing, and I don't see any reason, if those two guys coming in from the portal are as good as what Duke is expecting them to be, I don't see any reason, why Darian can't be extremely successful in the passing game. Not to mention, not to forget Landon King, the tight end that they just landed from Utah. So those are all weapons. Jeremiah Hazley is back from injury. All weapons at the disposal of the new quarterback.
The number 3 transfer in the country, according to ESPN. Again, 6'3", 200 pounds, a redshirt freshman with 3 seasons remaining. ESPN goes on to write that moving on from Malik Murphy and going all in on Darian Mensah makes a pretty serious statement about Manny Diaz's ambitions to contend in the ACC in 2025. And I think that is so well put. It's a Duke team that saw what they were able to accomplish a year ago. and now want to take that next step forward. And again, celebrating Duke football and what we've been able to do. The point we made a little bit earlier, you look at Malik Murphy this past season, you look at the really good years with Mike Elko, Riley Leonard is there under season. Daniel Jones had remarkable years as a Duke football quarterback. Let's go back to Anthony Boone rocking that number 7 for Duke. Like when they have played well, they've had a good quarterback on the team.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the expectations inside the program are very high. I believe the expectations on this team is ACC championship game. I believe that is the expectation. And you're obviously you don't really know. You don't know what your opponents are going to look like. Everything is so weird. Duke's got Tulane, which is ironic this year on the schedule, right? It'll be a return game for Darian Mensah. They've got who will be nationally ranked Illinois, coming into Wallace Wade this year as a part of, I believe, just a home and home. I think it's just a 2-year thing, potentially longer. But once again, it's going to be a little bit more of a difficult out of conference schedule. And, you don't know what your conference schedule really looks like. Last year, you would have thought because Duke played Virginia Tech and NC State that they had an extremely difficult ACC schedule. And then come to find out neither one of those teams were ultimately really that good. And so, you never know. But, I would say that you have the obvious game on Duke's schedule. That's Clemson. That's going to be, the major challenge. Outside of that, it's like every single game should either be Duke favored or Duke is going to be, right there. Yeah. And so I'm sure that they may go into a few games, as the underdog, but it's not going to be anything significant.
They're going to be ready to make it work and rock and roll here. I'm looking more to the story, and Darian Mensah telling ESPN another big part of why he wanted to go to Duke was he was intrigued by the academic prestige of the university, having his family there around him. Okay, I mentioned that, we talked last in December and January about this guy, Josh. He's been here for a full spring. He's kind of been around the program. What are people going to learn about Darian Mensah, the person? When you hear things like this, like, wow, 3 years of football left, and you're kind of the academic prestige of a university is interesting to him.
Yeah, I mean, I have heard nothing but positive things. In fact, just ran into some 2 or 3 guys that are they're inside the program this weekend. And they were just commenting on it, not necessarily the on the field stuff, but just the relationship building that he's really good at off the field, both in the academic space with his student peers, right? Yeah. But also on the team and his teammates. Many people probably saw on Instagram or social media where he went on, I think, spring break and went on spring break with a bunch of his teammates. And, I think that stuff definitely goes a long way. I know that he and Andrew Anthony, who was still finishing up some work at Oklahoma, were able to connect and get some reps in, and just things like that, man, that goes a long way in leading that locker room, because your quarterback is your locker room leader outside of your head coach. And I guess in Duke's sense, your strength and conditioning coach. Outside of those guys, really, he is the leader in the locker room. And I think, obviously it's been a stint here, but from what I can gather, both in the classroom, on the field, and then socially off the field, he's checking all 3 of those boxes at a very high level, and exactly what you would want in your team leader at quarterback.
We're ready to root for him. I think it's going to be an awesome season for the Duke football squad, and excited to see kind of the next steps as they move forward. All right, we'll take our final break here on today's show, begin to transition a little bit to a basketball discussion when Locked On Blue Devils continues here in a moment. Thank you so much for making Locked On Blue Devils your first listen and your first watch each and every day. For your second listen, we're talking transfer portal, so why don't you go check out the Portal Show with host Brian Smith from Locked On here. He's got the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find the Portal on YouTube or wherever it is that you listen to your podcast. Go check it out after this. Also, make sure that you go check out Locked On College Basketball with hosts Isaac Shade and Andy Patton. They do a remarkable job of breaking down everything happening within the sport. So go give it some love and check it out. All right, Josh Cox here with me on the program today, talking about the Duke basketball squad in the offseason and exiting a weekend in which, we're talking recruiting and next year's roster. We saw so many AAU circuits open up this past weekend, whether it be Under Armour or Nike or Adidas, and the Duke coaching staff is all over the place, as is many different staffs across the country. John Scheyer and Chris Carrawell are courtside at Cager Knippel's games, Khan's younger brother. I mean, we're off and running, man. Like this is the exciting time where people get to kind of get a sense of those future targets that Duke basketball might be wanting.
Yeah, I think interestingly enough, there's probably a lot of schools who are like, hey, this is no longer, that big of a deal to us. We're going to live and die in the portal, and we're just going to build our roster, from scratch every year. I think John has made it very clear that Duke basketball does not plan to necessarily do that. They plan to use the portal to supplement what they're doing in the recruiting trail. And so you're going to continue to see Duke and Coach Scheyer and the rest of the staff very heavily involved in high school recruiting at a very high level. And so, you can imagine, I mean, even prior to Coach Scheyer getting the head coaching job at Duke, he was considered, the number one recruiter in the country. And I know a lot of folks that maybe were not Duke people. I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of haters out there. But they had said, oh, well, that's just Scheyer leaning on Coach K's name. And then what was found out very quickly was that no, like Coach Scheyer, standing on his own 2 feet, can go into any living room and sell that Duke brand to parents and potential Duke basketball stars. And so I can assume when he shows up at an AAU circuit at a game, I'm assuming there's some eye rolls from other coaches that are there, from other fan bases that happen to be there watching, because it seems that this is not 100% accurate, but it seems like oftentimes who Coach Scheyer wants, Coach Scheyer winds up getting.
Pretty good power to have when you think about the best recruiters out there, for sure.
Well, so, JJ, the truth is, just to lean into that, it's the success at multiple levels, right? So let's just take academics and put it in its own little silo. You get that, especially if you're coming, you're not a one and done, and you think you're going to be a Caleb Foster. Cool, you can leave with a Duke degree. Tyrese Proctor, you can leave with a Duke degree, right? But then you have the success that you're able to see when you're in college, right? It doesn't always equate to a national title. Still angry. I'm still bitter. I don't really know if I want to talk about it yet. But it doesn't equate to a national championship this season, right? But you are successful.
Yep.
You are every season, you are in the running for an ACC championship. Every season, you are potentially the odds-on favorite to win the ACC tournament, right? Like you're going to get a top 2 or 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. You're going to be on national television. You're going to be talked about by the pundits and by podcasts and by ESPN. So there's that. But then there's what we have seen over the last several years, and I know you and I kind of share this affinity. You've got your NBA. You've got your lean on like, hey, look at our guys who are in the league. Like look at Paulo Banchero, kind of most recently as the high level guy. Look at what he's done with the Orlando Magic. I mean, look at Jason Tatum and all he means to the city of Boston. Look at the way that they've come behind him and rallied behind him during this injury to end the season. That sort of thing. And I mean, anyway, there's a lot to sell, and that's what Coach Scheyer has, and that's why I do feel like Coach Scheyer is going to continue the high school recruiting at a high level. He's going to continue to go after these 5-star guys, and then going to continue to land them.
And when you're talking about those greats that Duke has in the NBA, for Scheyer to be, one click on his phone away from connecting with those players while also being with these high school, that's a good power play, once again, that he's got in his deck. So, we saw over the weekend also it was announced that Braden Hawthorne is a high school recruit that Duke just had in for a visit. He's going to make his college decision tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Duke is one of the 5 finalists, although I don't know how optimistic the staff currently feels about the chances there. Dame Sarr, a lot of people are talking about him ahead of this upcoming season by way of FC Barcelona. He's Italian, and yes, it is Dame. A lot of Dame Sarr pronunciations out there, and I was guilty of it a lot until I was corrected. But it seems like he might be trending in favor. He's, in fact, got a couple of crystal ball projections or predictions sent in Duke's favor as of late. He looks like a stud, Josh. He looks like an absolute great basketball player.
Yeah, I mean, from what we have heard, he's on campus today. I can't verify that. I don't know, so I can't verify it. I do not know, but that's what's been reported through legitimate sources, so that he is on campus today. I will say, historically speaking, Duke gets involved late in the game with a recruit. They wind up on campus. We kind of know what happens. next. We'll
Good
see if
thing.
that happens. I'm sure any Kansas Jayhawk fan that's watching this is probably flipping me the bird at the moment. But yeah, he is on campus. He is the brother of Alex Sarr, who was a top draft choice over the last couple of seasons. Unfortunately, it was with the Washington Wizards. So you've probably never seen his brother play, even though he's in the NBA. Sounds terrible. But you know, obviously comes from a pedigree there. I do love the international game. I love, like, you know, Khan was obviously not an international player, but I feel like Khan kind of played that international game a little bit. And I feel like, you know, Sarr could come in, you know, at that shooting guard kind of position. He's a little thinner than Khan, but could come in and really bring the international flair to the offense, ball movement, unselfishness, competitiveness on defense, those types of things. And I, you know, once again, if John wants him, he's going to go after him. And once again, I'm not going to bet against it.
Yeah. Our final thing today is Cedric Coward. We still do not have an official decision as to whether or not he's going to stay in the draft or come back to college basketball. We're getting closer, though. May 28th is the deadline, so 9 days away. We did see today with the draft combine coming to a close, ESPN's Jonathan Givony and Jeremy Rue with Draft Express put out their most recent mock draft post-combine with what they were hearing from execs. They had Cedric Coward as the number 30 pick, the very last pick of the first round, where you do get all of that guaranteed money. So despite all the hype that he was getting throughout the course of last week, he comes in as the number 30 selection in Draft Express mock draft. Again, just one outlet there, but I do think that's certainly interesting. And it makes us think a little bit more about some of these comments that Cedric Coward made last week. Let's take a listen again to Cedric Coward.
100% focused on the draft. Talking to Coach Scheyer and the staff, I think I communicate pretty much everything with them as I gain information. And they're 100% with me on my focus of the draft right now because this is my dream. So at the moment, I'm 100% focused on the draft.
What do you need to hear to stay in the draft?
Honestly, I don't have like a specific thing I need to hear. Obviously, if it's like you're going to be a lottery pick, then yeah, I'm going to leave. But at the end of the day, I don't know if it's something specific I need to hear. I just know it's a conversation with my agent that will help me decide and, you know, with the best information I have for the best decision for me.
How would Duke help you?
Oh, tremendously. There's a reason I picked them, you know. It kind of sucks because people think like I'm using Duke for, you know, just the noise or whatever it is, or whatever it may be. But I picked them, and I love Coach Scheyer and the staff for a reason. And I believe they can help me if I were to go there. And, you know, you see what they did this year. They got the whole starting lineup in the draft combine. So, you know, I know that'll help me if I go there, too.
How would you describe the strengths of your team right now?
He's not even played a game yet for Duke. And I just know that was firing Josh up as you're sitting there listening to it, man.
Yeah, I mean, what more do you want, right? I mean, like that's awesome. I would say, you know, he mentioned that he's not necessarily looking for something specific.
Yeah.
A first round guarantee, right? Would, if I'm his agent,
Yeah.
a first round guarantee would sway my decision. Number one. And then number two, if you don't get that first round, though, I do think there's precedent both ways with those non-guaranteed guys, right? You've got your Gary Trents,
Yep.
who were successful and who's made millions of dollars and who's proving it in the league. And then you got your DJ Stewards right now. And I understand his measurables are not DJ Steward's measurables. But I, you know, who knows, man? Who knows? But I will say this: if Duke basketball fans are watching and listening, you have to think about this is a kid's human being with a family, and he needs to take care of himself. And now there's NIL.
Yeah.
There's obviously some things Duke can do to sweeten the pot. And I'm sure Coach Scheyer, within reason, is going to offer, you know, the kitchen sink that he can offer. But at the end of the day, as Cedric said, his dream is to play in the NBA. And if he can guarantee that dream, man, more power to him.
Can Duke help you here? Tremendously. Yeah, we love it.
So the question really, JJ, even on the first round, once again, I could play devil's advocate to myself all day long on this.
Right.
But I mean, it's like, okay, do you Do you go on just a first round guarantee at like a 28 or 27? Or do you come to Duke for a year, gamble on yourself, and turn into a top 5 to 7 pick next year?
Right.
This is a very strong draft this year, very strong.
So loaded. Yeah.
So it's like, do you get, whatever, however many million? I have no clue what he would get coming to Duke in NIL, but like get that, and you can live on that, I'm sure, and then up your entry to the NBA. I don't know, man. Here's the cool thing about where Cedric sits. He can't make a bad decision.
Yeah.
You can't make a bad decision.
For sure.
You make one decision and you're fulfilling a lifelong dream of being an NBA basketball player.
It's just,
you make the other decision, you're going to Duke.
Even beyond the money thing, when you say that Duke can tremendously help you to hit, like it's national TV every single time you play. More and more people know he played 6 games last year in college basketball. What conference does Washington State even play in these days? When you've got the Pac-12 that's folded apart and that sort of thing. Clearly, basketball people are starting to figure out who this guy is. But you become more of a product when you can attach the brotherhood to your name, which is incredible.
Exhibit A, come on, Malawach.
Sure.
Exhibit A.
Yep.
So he'll
Make
be
it
a
happen.
top 10 pick. He'll be a top 10 pick. And it is because of his skill set, but it's also because everybody knows that name now because of where he went to school.
We love it. Josh, it's good to see you, man. Got to talk football and basketball here with you again, and we'll have to do this again sometime soon, okay?
JJ, have a great one, man. Thanks for having me on.
All right, that's Josh Cox joining us here on today's show. Go support the Section 17 podcast and everything that they've got going on in the world of Duke football. Make sure you subscribe to our show as well. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review. Follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils and subscribe to our YouTube channel. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.